The desert had a way of stripping a man down to what he truly was. Winds scraped the earth like a dull blade, dragging dust across the plain and rattling the bones of a half-forgotten world. A retired cowboy named Clay Ironwood sat alone beside a dying fire, his back bent not from fear but from years of honest work and hard miles. His hands were scarred, his eyes quiet, and his gun belt hung unused on a post, more a memory than a threat. He had come to this edge of the territory to disappear, to let the land swallow what the years had left behind. He did not know that fate had followed him there. Clay had once been a name spoken with caution. He had ridden against rustlers, guarded wagon trains, and buried friends beneath nameless stones. Now his days were measured by sunrise and sunset, by the sound of creaking leather and the slow boil of coffee. He believed his fighting days were over. He believed the past had finally loosened its grip. That belief would not last the night. She appeared at the edge of the firelight without a sound, as if the desert itself had shaped her from shadow. Her posture was straight despite exhaustion, her eyes sharp despite grief. She wore the marks of the Apache people, not as decoration but as history written on skin and spirit. Her name was Silent Rain, a widow hardened by loss and sharpened by love. In her arms she carried a child wrapped tight against the cold, a small life trembling with fever and fear. Clay reached for his rifle by instinct, then stopped. He had learned long ago that not every threat announced itself with violence. Silent Rain did not flinch. She stepped forward into the firelight, revealing dust on her face and blood dried dark along her sleeve. Her gaze met his, steady and unbroken. "My child is dying," she said, her voice low but unshaking. Each word carried weight, not desperation alone but resolve. "Men hunt us. Soldiers and men worse than soldiers. I was told you once rode faster than fear." Clay studied her, the way a man studies a storm before deciding whether to ride through or wait it out. He saw no lies there, only a mother pushed to the edge of the world. He glanced at the child, whose breathing came shallow and uneven. The desert had no mercy for the weak, and neither did the men who prowled its edges. "I am done with killing," Clay said at last. His voice was rough, like boots on gravel. "Done with running. You came to the wrong fire." Silent Rain took another step closer. The fire snapped between them, sparks climbing into the dark. "There is no other fire," she said. "Save my child, and I will reward you with myself. Not as a thing to be taken, but as a life bound by honor." The words struck Clay harder than any bullet he had ever dodged. He stiffened, not with desire, but with anger at the cruelty of the choice she had been forced to make. He had seen too many worlds where women paid the price for men's wars. He shook his head slowly. "You owe me nothing," he said. "And I do not buy lives." Silent Rain did not look away. "This is not purchase," she replied. "This is promise. I have nothing left but that promise." The wind howled louder, as if the land itself waited for his answer. Clay turned away, staring into the fire. He thought of the faces he had lost, of the graves he had ridden past without stopping. He thought of the man he had been, and the man he pretended to be now. He had come here to fade. Fate had other plans. He rose to his feet with a grunt, joints aching, resolve settling in like a familiar weight. He reached for his gun belt and buckled it around his waist. The leather creaked in recognition. Silent Rain watched without speaking, hope flickering behind her guarded eyes. "Who hunts you?" Clay asked. "Men who wear blue and men who wear no color at all," she said. "They want the child." His father was Red Wolf, a war leader who died refusing to kneel. They believe the blood of Red Wolf belongs to them. Clay exhaled slowly. He knew that kind of thinking. It had fueled every ugly chapter of the frontier. He glanced toward the dark hills where shadows moved in ways that were not entirely natural. "There is a trading post 2 days east," he said. "A doctor who asks few questions. Getting there alive is the hard part?" Silent Rain nodded once. "Hard roads are the only ones left to us." They moved before dawn, Clay leading, Silent Rain following with the child bound close. The land stretched wide and empty, but emptiness could be deceiving. Tracks told stories to those who knew how to read them, and Clay saw signs of pursuit before the sun fully rose. Horses, many, fresh dots they rode. Clay felt the old instincts return, sharp and unwelcome. He scanned ridgelines, counted breaths, measured silence. Silent Rain watched him with a mixture of caution and respect. She saw not a relic, but a man waking from a long sleep. The child stirred, letting out a weak cry. Silent Rain tightened her hold, whispering words in her language, prayers older than any flag. Clay felt something twist in his chest. He had never had children. He had buried enough to last several lifetimes. By midday, gunshots cracked the air behind them. Riders crested a distant rise, dust boiling beneath hooves. Clay swore under his breath and spurred his horse harder. "They are close," Silent Rain said. "Closer than I like." Clay answered. They veered toward a narrow canyon where stone walls rose like clenched fists. Clay knew the place. A trap for fools, a shield for men who understood it. He led them in, heart-pounding, mind-calculating as they disappeared into the canyon's shadow. Clay knew there would be no easy path back to the quiet life he had chosen. Blood would be spilled. Choices would be tested. Promises would demand payment. Behind them, the riders closed in, and ahead, the canyon twisted into darkness. Silent Rain held her child tighter, and Clay Ironwood rode on, knowing that by saving one life, he might have to face every ghost he had ever tried to outrun. The canyon swallowed sound the moment they entered it. Hooves struck stone instead of sand, sharp echoes bouncing off the walls and returning twisted and loud. Clay Ironwood slowed his horse just enough to listen. The air smelled of rock and old water, the kind of place where time moved differently. He had ridden through this cut once before, years ago, while escorting a family east. Only one of them had made it out alive. The memory sat heavy, but he pushed it aside. Silent Rain rode close behind him, her posture steady despite the danger pressing in from all sides. The child shifted again, his breath uneven, his small fingers curling into her buckskin. Clay noticed the way she kept her eyes forward, never letting panic steal her focus. She reminded him of women he had seen survive massacres and winters alike, women who carried strength quietly, like a hidden blade. The canyon narrowed until the walls almost touched. Clay raised a hand, signaling her to stop. He dismounted and pressed his palm to the stone. Vibrations trembled faintly beneath his skin. Horses, too many to count. The men chasing them were splitting up, trying to box them in. "They know this place," Silent Rain said softly. "They know parts of it," Clay replied, "but not the bones." He led them deeper, choosing a path that bent sharply left, then dropped into a shallow ravine hidden by brush and shadow. From above, it looked like a dead end. From below, it was a waiting ground. Clay tethered the horses and motioned for Silent Rain to crouch behind a boulder. He checked his rifle, movements calm and practiced as they waited. Silent Rain spoke again, her voice barely more than breath. "You did not ask why they want the child alive." Clay kept his eyes on the ridge. "I already know." She studied him, surprised. "Then you know danger follows him forever." "I know men chase what they fear," Clay said. "And they fear bloodlines more than bullets." Silent Rain nodded. Red Wolf believed the old world was ending. He said a child born between storms would carry the memory of what was lost. That belief made him powerful. It also made him hunted. Clay glanced back at the child, his face pale, sweat clinging to his brow. "Beliefs get a lot of people killed. They also keep some alive," Silent Rain replied. Shadows moved above them. Voices drifted down, rough and impatient. Clay caught glimpses of blue coats mixed with unmarked riders. That told him enough. Official orders tangled with greed. The worst kind of pursuit. One rider dismounted near the ravine edge, boots scraping stone. Clay tensed, finger resting near the trigger, not ready to fire but ready to decide. The man peered down, scanning the shadows. A moment stretched thin. Then another voice called him away, and the footsteps retreated. Clay exhaled slowly. He did not relax. When the sounds faded, Silent Rain finally shifted. "How did you come to know places like this?" she asked. Clay leaned back against the rock, eyes still alert. I used to guide people through hell and call it work. Gold seekers, preachers, soldiers who had never slept without walls. This land taught me who would live and who would not. And you? Silent Rain said. What did it teach you? That surviving is not the same as living, Clay answered. The canyon remained quiet, but Clay knew quiet never lasted. As the sun dipped lower, he decided to move again. They could not wait for night with a sick child and enemies circling. They emerged from the ravine and followed a narrow game trail that climbed toward higher ground. The horses struggled, but Clay pushed them gently. From the ridge, he could see far across the desert. Smoke rose in the distance. A camp. Too organized to be settlers. Too bold to be traders. Silent Rain followed his gaze. They are waiting, she said. Yes, Clay replied. And they expect us to run straight. Instead, Clay turned north toward a stretch of land most riders avoided. Broken ground, old ruins half buried by sand. Stories clung to that place, stories of vanished villages and spirits that punish the careless. Clay did not believe in spirits, but he believed in fear, and fear could be used. As they rode, Silent Rain began to speak of her past, not as a plea but as a sharing. She told him of Red Wolf, how he had tried to unite fractured bands against encroaching forces. How betrayal came not from enemies, but from those who wanted peace at any price. She spoke of firelit councils and long nights of planning, of hope that burned too bright. Clay listened without interrupting. He recognized the pattern. Idealism crushed by reality. He had worn that look once. I was not always a widow, Silent Rain said. I was once known as Dawn Hunter. The name changed when everything else did. Clay nodded. Names change when blood is spilled. The child stirred again, coughing weakly. Silent Rain's jaw tightened. If he dies before we reach the doctor, she said, then all of this means nothing. Clay slowed his horse. He will not die today. She looked at him then, truly looked, searching for doubt. She found none. Only a promise he had not spoken aloud. Night crept in as they reached the ruins. Stone foundations jutted from the sand like broken teeth. Clay dismounted and led the horses through carefully, avoiding loose ground. He chose a collapsed wall for shelter and built a small fire hidden from open view. As Silent Rain tended the child, Clay scouted the perimeter. He found tracks again, fresh, too fresh. Someone else was already here. A figure stepped from behind a pillar, hands raised, tall, broad-shouldered. His hair was braided with bone and copper. His eyes held the weight of many winters. Ironwood, the man said. I wondered if the land would spit you back out. Clay stiffened. Stone Bear, he replied. I heard you were dead. Stone Bear smiled thinly. I heard the same about you. Silent Rain rose slowly, tension sharp in her stance. Stone Bear's gaze flicked to her, then to the child. Something unreadable passed across his face. You bring trouble, Stone Bear said. And trouble brings payment. Clay stepped forward, placing himself between them. I am not here to bargain. Stone Bear laughed quietly. Everyone is here to bargain. The question is what you are willing to lose. From the darkness beyond the ruins came the distant sound of horses. Closer now, coordinated, Clay felt the walls closing in. Alliances shifting like sand. Stone Bear lowered his hands, eyes never leaving Clay. The men hunting you made me an offer, he said. But I have not answered yet. Clay met his stare, knowing the night would demand a choice from all of them, and that no path forward would come without a cost still waiting to be paid. Stone Bear's presence changed the air around the ruins. The fire crackled low, its glow catching the sharp edges of broken stone and the lines etched deep into his face. He was a man shaped by survival, not loyalty, and Clay Ironwood knew better than to mistake familiarity for trust. They had ridden together once long ago, when borders were thinner and choices were simpler. That time was buried now, like everything else. You should leave, Silent Rain said, her voice calm but edged with warning. She stood close to the child, her body angled protectively. Her eyes never leaving Stone Bear. Stone Bear looked at her, really looked, and then at the child again. The blood runs strong, he said quietly. I can see it. Red Wolf's fire did not die with him. Silent Rain's jaw tightened. Speak carefully. Clay raised a hand. We are not here to trade stories. Riders are closing in. If you made a deal, now would be a good time to say so. Stone Bear's gaze shifted back to Clay. They offered silver and safe passage. They offered to forget old debts. Clay almost laughed. Men like that do not forget. They delay. Stone Bear did not deny it. He stepped closer to the fire, warming his hands as if the world beyond the ruins did not exist. You always were stubborn, he said. That is why you lived longer than most. And you always chased the winning side, Clay replied. That is why no one trusts you. A flicker of irritation crossed Stone Bear's face. Trust is a luxury. Survival is not. Beyond the ruins, the sound of horses grew clearer. Commands carried on the wind. Someone was organizing the search, tightening the net. Silent Rain felt it too. She adjusted the wrap around the child, whispering softly to keep him calm. The boy's fever had not broken. Each shallow breath felt like a ticking clock. Clay turned to Silent Rain. There is a narrow pass east of here, he said. Too tight for horses. We can lose them there, but only if we move now. Stone Bear tilted his head. And leave me with the men who think I owe them an answer. You put yourself in that position, Clay said. Stone Bear's eyes hardened. So did you, the moment you took her side. A distant shout cut through the night. A lantern flared somewhere beyond the ruins. Stone Bear swore under his breath. Silent Rain stepped forward. You speak of survival, she said. Then help us. Or step aside. Stone Bear studied her for a long moment. In his eyes, Clay saw calculation battling memory. Finally, Stone Bear reached into his coat and pulled free a small carved token, worn smooth by time. He tossed it to Clay. Follow the dry river north, he said. There is a bend where sound dies. They will miss your trail there. As for me, I will give them something else to chase. Clay caught the token. Why help us? Stone Bear turned away, already fading into shadow. Because some debts do not fade. And because children should not pay for men's wars. He vanished into the ruins just as voices broke through the perimeter. Clay did not hesitate. He mounted his horse and motioned for Silent Rain to follow. They rode hard, skirting the edge of the broken stone, slipping into darkness as shouts erupted behind them. From a distance, Clay heard gunfire echo against rock. Stone Bear was keeping his word. For now, they rode north until the land dipped and twisted into a dry riverbed, its cracked earth pale under moonlight. As promised, the sound of pursuit faded, swallowed by the bend. Clay slowed only when he was sure they had bought themselves time. Silent Rain leaned forward, pressing her cheek to the child's head. He is burning, she said. Fear crept into her voice despite her strength. Clay dismounted and checked the boy as best he could. He was no doctor, but he had seen enough sickness on the trail to recognize danger. We need that trading post, he said. By tomorrow night. They rested briefly, sharing water, the silence heavy but not empty. In that quiet, Silent Rain spoke again, her voice softer now. Red Wolf believed men like you were rare, she said. Men who walked between worlds. Clay looked away. Red Wolf believed in many things. He believed the frontier was changing, Silent Rain continued. That the old ways and the new ones would collide and only those willing to protect life would matter in the end? Clay said nothing. He thought of the blue coats of the unmarked riders, of Stone Bear standing alone to delay them. The frontier was changing, and it was changing violently. Far behind them. Stone Bear faced the men who hunted Clay and Silent Rain. He stood tall among the ruins, lantern light flickering across his face. A man in a blue coat approached, his expression tight with authority. You were told to keep watch, the officer said. Not play games. Stone Bear shrugged. I saw nothing. The ruins are empty. The officer studied him, suspicion sharp. You expect us to believe that? Before Stone Bear could answer, another rider galloped in, breathless. Tracks lead north, the rider said. But they vanish at the river bend. The officer cursed. Spread out. Burn the ground if you have to. Stone Bear stepped aside, letting them pass. As they rode on, he allowed himself a small, grim smile. He knew the land better than they ever would. Back on the trail, Clay and Silent Rain pressed forward again before dawn. The desert shifted from cold to heat with cruel speed. Clay watched the horizon, always scanning, always listening. Every shadow felt like a threat now. Silent Rain spoke little, conserving strength, her focus fixed on the child. In her silence, Clay sensed resolve hardening into something sharper. She was not only running anymore. She was preparing. By midday, they spotted smoke ahead. Not the trading post yet, but a lone camp. Clay slowed, caution tightening his chest. A man stood near the fire, tall and lean, his coat patched and worn. His name was Ash Calder, a scout known for selling information to the highest bidder. Clay recognized him instantly. Ash Calder smiled when he saw them. "Ironwood," he called out. "The desert keeps throwing you back into my path." Clay did not smile. "Move along?" Ash's eyes flicked to Silent Rain and the child. Interest sparked. "That will not be easy," he said. "Word is spreading. Big reward for a boy with the blood of Redwolf." Silent Rain's hand tightened around her knife. Ash raised his hand slightly. "Easy, I am only observing." Clay knew better. Ash Calder observed until he decided to sell. And once he sold, the hunt would grow worse. As they rode past, Clay felt the weight of unseen eyes closing in again. Too many people wanted what Silent Rain carried. Too many forces pulling in opposite directions. The trading post lay somewhere ahead, fragile hope on a dangerous road. Behind them, Stone Bear's gamble would not hold forever. Ahead, men like Ash Calder would ensure the price of survival kept rising. Clay Ironwood rode on, knowing the main conflict had only begun, and that every mile forward would demand more than he had ever planned to give. The land began to change as they pushed farther east. The sand thinned, giving way to scrub and low hills where shadows lingered longer than they should. Clay Ironwood felt the weight of every mile in his bones. His horse breathed hard, foam gathering at its bit, but he dared not slow for long. Too many eyes were open now. Too many ears listening for rumors of a widow, a child, and a retired cowboy who refused to stay buried. Silent Rain rode with her spine straight despite exhaustion. The child's fever came and went in waves, each one stealing more color from his face. She whispered to him constantly, her words a steady rhythm meant to anchor him to this world. Clay watched her from time to time, seeing the same determination he had seen in women who crossed plains with nothing but hope and stubborn will. It was not weakness that drove her bargain. It was love sharpened into resolve. They avoided the trading road, choosing instead to follow a line of cottonwood trees that traced a narrow stream. Clay knew this stretch. A few miles ahead sat the trading post, little more than a cluster of buildings clinging to survival. It was close enough now that hope became dangerous. Hope made men careless. As if summoned by the thought, hoofbeats echoed behind them. Clay did not turn. He did not need to. He could feel pursuit pressing close, tightening like a noose. "Riders," Silent Rain said. "I know." Clay replied. They pushed harder, but the ground betrayed them. Rocks shifted under hooves, slowing their pace. A shout rang out, then another. Shapes appeared along the ridgeline, dark against the sky. Clay veered off the path, guiding them toward a shallow ravine choked with brush. They dismounted quickly. He led the horses deeper, masking their trail as best he could. Silent Rain crouched low, cradling the child, her eyes fierce and unblinking. Men rode past above them, voices sharp with urgency. One voice stood out, smooth and confident. "Ash Calder, they are close," Ash called. "Spread wide. Do not rush. The reward waits for patience." Clay clenched his jaw. Ash was enjoying this. He always did. When the riders moved on, Clay did not relax. He knew Ash would not let this trail go cold. He would circle back, tighten the search, sell every scrap of information he gathered. They waited until the sun dipped low, shadows stretching long. Then Clay made his choice. He would not outrun this hunt. He would have to break it. "There is an old freight bridge ahead," he said quietly to Silent Rain. half collapsed. Most men avoid it, we will not. Silent Rain nodded without question. Trust had settled between them, not spoken but earned with every step taken together. They reached the bridge as dusk bled into night. Wooden beams groaned under the weight of time, ropes frayed, planks missing. Below, a narrow gorge cut deep, water whispering far beneath. Clay tested the structure carefully. It would hold barely. He led the horses across one by one, breath held tight. Silent Rain followed, her focus absolute. Halfway across, a shout echoed from behind them. "There!" Ash Calder's voice rang out. "They are on the bridge." Gunfire cracked the air, splintering wood. Clay urged the horses forward. A plank gave way under the last horse, sending it stumbling, but they made it across. Clay cut the tether and slapped the horse hard, sending it galloping away in the opposite direction. "What are you doing?" Silent Rain asked. "Buying confusion?" Clay said. More riders poured into view, lanterns bobbing like fireflies. They hesitated at the bridge, shouting orders. Ash Calder rode forward, studying the damage. "They crossed," he said. "Careful now, one mistake and this whole thing falls." Clay used the moment. He led Silent Rain down a narrow path into the gorge, disappearing into shadow as the bridge creaked ominously behind them. The gorge twisted and narrowed, sound muffled by stone. Clay moved with purpose, heart pounding but mind clear. He knew this place too. He had once hidden here from a posse that wanted him dead for a crime he did not commit. The land remembered him, even if the world did not. They emerged hours later on the far side, battered but unseen. In the distance, lights flickered. The trading post. So close now that Clay could smell smoke and hear faint laughter carried on the wind. Silent Rain's breath caught. "We are near." "Yes," Clay said, "but so are they." As if to prove his point, a rider appeared ahead, blocking the path. He wore no uniform, his face scarred and cruel. Behind him, more shapes gathered. Clay stepped forward, hand resting near his gun, not eager but ready. "Move aside," he said. The man grinned. "Not tonight." From behind, another group emerged, cutting off retreat. The net had closed. Ash Calder rode into view, his expression pleased. "You run hard," Ash said. "I admire that." But all roads end. Silent Rain stood beside Clay, lifting her chin. "You will not take him," she said. "Not alive." Ash laughed softly. "Alive is optional." Before Clay could respond, a voice rang out from the trading post walls. "That is far enough." Torches flared to life. Armed men lined the palisade. At their head stood a broad-shouldered figure with iron-gray hair and a calm, unyielding gaze. His name was Judge Halle Cross, a man known for keeping order where law rarely reached. Frowned. "This is not your affair." Halle Cross stepped forward. "It became my affair when blood was threatened at my gate." The standoff stretched, tension thick enough to choke on. Clay felt Silent Rain's hand brush his arm, grounding him. Ash weighed his options, eyes darting between the walls and his men. "You would protect them," he said. "Even knowing what the child represents." Halle Cross's gaze shifted briefly to the boy, then back to Ash. "I protect those who reach my door seeking help. That is how this place survives." Ash's jaw tightened. He knew he was outmatched here. But he also knew the hunt was not over. "Another time," Ash said finally. He signaled his men to pull back. "This is not finished." As the riders withdrew into the darkness, Clay allowed himself one slow breath. The danger had not passed, but the night had shifted in their favor. Halle Cross opened the gates. "Get inside," he said, "before someone changes their mind." They crossed into the trading post, lights and voices closing around them like a fragile shield. Silent Rain sagged slightly, relief and exhaustion crashing together. The child whimpered softly, still clinging to life. Clay looked back once, toward the dark where Ash Calder had vanished. He knew this was only the calm before something far greater. Forces were moving now that could not be easily stopped. As the gates closed behind them, Clay Ironwood felt the weight of the coming storm. They had reached the edge of safety, but the final reckoning still waited ahead, and it would demand everything they had left to give. The night at the trading post was quiet at first, but not peaceful. Lanterns flickered, casting long shadows across the rough-hewn walls. Clay Ironwood helped Silent Rain settle the child onto a cot, tucking him in carefully, checking that the blankets covered him well. The fever had not broken, but the steady warmth of the post, the water, and medicine Halle Cross's men provided began to work its slow magic. Silent Rain's eyes were heavy with relief and fatigue, yet she never left the child's side. Clay stepped outside, letting the cool desert air wash over him. He could hear the distant cries of coyotes and the gentle shift of sand under night wind. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself a moment to breathe. Ash Calder had vanished into the darkness, but for now they were safe. That safety, fragile as it was, felt like a small victory against a world that had sought to destroy them. Halle Cross approached quietly, his presence calm but commanding. "He will pull through," he said, nodding toward the trading post's interior, but not without care. Clay gave a small nod. "We owe him that." The judge looked at Clay, his expression unreadable. "And you? You have ridden hard to protect what others would kill. What will you do now?" Clay hesitated, the memories of every ride, every fight, every loss pressing against him. "I don't know," he admitted. "I came here to disappear, to let the past die quietly. But sometimes the past has a way of finding you, forcing you to ride again." Silent Rain emerged from inside, her gaze steady. She had washed the sweat and grime from her face, but the fire in her eyes remained. "We have a chance," she said softly, "to survive, to live. That is worth more than any bargain, any fight." Clay looked at her, really looked, and for a moment the weight of all that he had carried seemed to lighten. He saw not just survival, but strength, resilience, and something he had not thought possible for a long time. Future worth fighting for. The next days passed with careful routine. The child's fever finally broke, and with each passing hour he grew stronger. Silent Rain smiled more freely, her relief mingled with a cautious hope. Clay taught her how to manage the horses and the supplies at the post, not as a teacher, but as someone who understood the land and its demands. Halle Cross watched over them, offering quiet guidance, never interfering unnecessarily. Stone Bear returned one morning, riding hard and grim-faced. Clay met him outside the post's walls. "I thought you might have abandoned us," Clay said, his voice rough but friendly. Stone Bear shook his head. "Some debts cannot be abandoned," he said. "I made sure Calder and his men are far enough to think twice before returning." Clay nodded, a sense of gratitude unspoken but understood. Stone Bear had chosen honor over profit this time, and that decision had saved them all. Silent Rain joined them, holding the child securely in her arms. "You did well," she said to Clay and Stone Bear both. "We are alive because of choices made by people who refused to turn away." Stone Bear's face softened slightly, an almost imperceptible smile. "You do not owe me thanks. Only keep what you have." Over the following weeks, life at the trading post began to settle into a rhythm. Clay helped repair the buildings, reinforcing walls and mending fences. Silent Rain tended to the child, teaching him small skills, sharing stories of his father Red Wolf, and honoring the heritage that he carried within him. Clay found himself drawn into their small family, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to. One afternoon, as the sun burned low in the sky, Clay and Silent Rain sat outside on the porch, watching the desert stretch wide and golden. The child played nearby, laughing despite the scars of illness and fear. The sound was a balm, a reminder that life could thrive even after the harshest trials. "You ever think about riding again?" Silent Rain asked softly. "But not for fighting or running?" Clay chuckled, a low sound that surprised him. "I thought I was done with that life. But maybe there's more to it than survival. Maybe there's work worth doing, people worth standing for." Silent Rain reached out, placing a hand over his. "We found a way to keep moving forward even when the past catches up. That's the choice now." That evening, a messenger arrived from a neighboring settlement. They had heard of Clay Ironwood's deeds, of Silent Rain's courage, and of the child who carried the bloodline of Red Wolf. Halle Cross ensured the message was handled with discretion. But its content mattered. Others respected their right to exist. To protect what had survived the storm. Clay and Silent Rain stood at the edge of the trading post, watching the messenger ride away. "It's a start," Clay said. "Small victories, but real ones." The child toddled up, holding a small stick like a sword. He looked up at Clay and Silent Rain, eyes wide and trusting. Clay knelt, placing his hands gently on the boy's shoulders. "You're going to be all right," he said. "You're going to grow strong, and no one will take that from you." Silent Rain joined them, wrapping her arms around both of them. For the first time, the fear that had clung to her like a shadow began to lift. She realized that the choices she had made, the risks she had taken, had all led to this moment. A life saved, a child protected, a future reclaimed. Clay stood afterward, looking out across the desert. The wind whispered over the dunes, carrying dust, voices, and the faint scent of freedom. He thought of the men they had escaped, the dangers that still lingered beyond the horizon, and yet for the first time he did not feel dread. He felt possibility. Stone Bear appeared once more, watching the scene quietly. He had chosen to disappear into the lands again, to walk his own path. But before leaving he spoke simply, "The desert is wide. Choices are yours. Remember that." Clay nodded, understanding the deeper meaning. Survival alone was not enough. To live fully, to protect those you loved, to honor promises, that was the true measure of strength. In the days that followed, the trading post became more than a place of refuge. Clay, Silent Rain, and the child began to cultivate a life that blended courage with care. They planted small gardens, tended horses, repaired structures, and shared stories with travelers. Word of their deeds spread quietly, not as legend, but as truth, the kind of truth that inspired hope. One morning, as the sun painted the sky in gold and crimson, Clay and Silent Rain stood side by side on a low rise overlooking the desert. The child played nearby, his laughter ringing clear. The horizon stretched endless, full of danger, promise, and the unknown. Yet for the first time, neither of them feared it. Silent Rain turned to Clay. "We have survived," she said. "And we will continue to do so, together." Clay's eyes softened, a rare smile breaking across his weathered face. "Together," he agreed. As the wind carried the scent of sage and warm earth. The desert seemed quieter, almost watchful, as if approving of this fragile, hard-won peace. They had faced relentless pursuit, betrayal, and fear. They had risked everything to protect one small life. And, in doing so, they had rediscovered the strength of humanity, courage, and the bonds that make life worth living. The trading post stood firm behind them, a small bastion against the wild. The child ran ahead, his steps unburdened, laughter mingling with the wind. Silent Rain walked beside Clay, hand in hand, their silhouettes strong against the vast, open sky. The horizon promised more challenges, yes, but also new beginnings. And for the first time in a long time, Clay Ironwood, Silent Rain, and the boy who carried Red Wolf's legacy understood the truth. Survival was not the end. Life, love, and the courage to protect what mattered most, that was the true victory. The desert stretched endlessly before them, wild and untamed, yet full of hope. And as they stood together, the wind lifting dust and whispering through the sage, it was clear they had not just endured. They had begun to live.